Hi, I'm Amanda Tran and welcome to Self. I'm here to have conversations, share ideas and experiences to explore the self with the aim of helping people to live happier and healthier lives. This setup is totally professional and very schmancy. All thanks to Lighthouse Studios in Bali. It is a beautiful spot. I'll be recording a few episodes from here, so don't get used to it. Not everything's going to be coming out of here. So I wanted to pop in today and talk about something that happened to me recently that pulled me back into quite an old headspace that I haven't been in for a while. So recently, a friend shared a video of me doing a headstand at Kling Kling Beach in Nusa Penida in Indonesia. And it's just this like funny, silly video. I get washed out by a wave and knocked over. And when we were doing it, it was obviously all just for a bit of fun. And I was racing the waves. And he was supposed to tell me when a wave was coming, but obviously didn't. So he could get a good laugh out of it and I guess get it on camera. Anyway, the video got reposted on some page that makes fun of influencers and people just started ripping into it. I've never heard of this page before and I'm not an influencer. So someone sent it to me and I was like, oh, that's me. And scrolling through the comments, I found some that were very positive and others that were pretty negative and some that were just really mean. And then another friend of mine sent me an article that Yahoo had posted writing about the video, which is so weird because, I don't know, it must have been a very slow news day. And yeah, I mean, the article just described the video and then mentioned some of the comments. And I felt this part of me, this very small part of me, starting to get pulled back into caring about what these strangers online thought. You know, I actually started reading these comments. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, these are strangers, literally people who don't matter at all to me, whose opinion would, is completely meaningless and they make absolutely no difference to my life. And I wouldn't ever change what I'm doing based on their opinions. So, but this part of me kind of still felt pulled a little bit in. And I know that it's easier to say, don't care about what others think of you. But this can be a lot harder in practice. And so this silly video and it kind of being shared and going, I don't want to say viral, but seen by a massive audience that I did not think was going to see it. This gave me an opportunity to reflect again on what I have done and what I continually do to let go of caring about what others think of me. And I guess the first thing is to get curious about where this care comes from and just to understand where it comes from. Human nature, like our need for acceptance and for belonging is wired into us. We're social creatures. We want to feel a part of something. I know for me, when I thought about this and in the past when I've thought about really taking on board what others think of me, often I've defined my value and my worth in their opinion. The other thing for me has been a need to control a narrative. So it's this need for control over something that ultimately I really don't have control over. And when I was reflecting on this, the image that I had, funnily enough, it was like the waves. You know when you get hit by a wave, pretty much like this stupid video, where there's water and sand all mixed together in it. So when the wave hits you, it's made up of this mixture and there's no separating it. So either you're hit by the entire wave and you obviously get wet and you've got sand everywhere, or you remove yourself completely and you don't get hit by it at all. And I think receiving any validating opinions or comments and receiving criticism is the same way. So just like a wave where the water and the sand is mixed together, there's really no separating, compliments from criticism. So when we take on compliments, when we take on things that we find validating, we also allow ourselves to take on the criticism. So you are impacted. Either you're impacted by both or you're not impacted at all. And so balance within the mind is essentially being unattached from both of these things. When we don't have an attachment to receiving compliments or having an aversion to criticism from others, then we actually live in a peaceful state without being rocked by either of these. It's removing yourself from an opportunity to get hit by the wave, right? So yeah, I guess like understanding where this comes from for me, where this comes from for you, that's a pivotal part in being able to let go. Because we just got to know, like, is this just, is it part of an insecurity? What part is it speaking to? Something that's helpful for me has been accepting that what others think of me is none of my business. And I've shared that with a few friends, and that can be quite hard to take, I think. There is nobody that's for everybody, and we're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I struggled with that a lot. I think when I was younger, because I wanted to be liked by everyone. I wanted to be everyone's friend. I wanted the validation, and I was attaching myself to an outcome that ultimately I don't have control over. We don't have control over what others think of us. We don't have control over what they say, what they do, as much as we would like to. And recognizing for me that pattern, what I was going back to before, that I wanted to, there've been many times when I want to control the narrative that's coming out, but we don't have control over it sometimes. Like, it's ultimately what people come up with for themselves is up to them. So I used to be a lawyer in an old past life, and I quit my job 6.5 years ago to travel the world. And since then, I have not returned to law. My life is completely different to how it was, 7 years ago and what I'd pictured for it. I'm here 6.5 years later. I'm 32 years old. I'm divorced. I live a completely different life. I'm earning way less money than what I was before. And I think to many people would look at my life and see it as a disappointment. And some others might look at it and see it as an inspiration. But either way, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it doesn't matter what someone else thinks of what I'm doing, or whether they validate it, whether they confirm that it's okay or not. That's not my business. My aim is simply to show up in the world as best that I can, and hope that I have a positive impact, especially on those around me and closest to me. So just being able to accept that, hey, I don't have to be for everyone, and what they think of me is not my business. And that's been pretty helpful in being able to let go and not spiral down into, like reading all the comments and things like that. So, yeah. The next thing that I really had to work on was to stop judging others. Because I think when we're able to do that ourselves, when we're able to stop judging others and being critical of others, and rather being just open and curious about their experience, when we do that, we then develop a different kind of compassion and kindness within ourselves. And then we actually understand that other people's judgments, other people's opinions are really just about them often. It's like a lot of these things have nothing to do with us anyway. Something that I try to live by is to not assume intentions from actions. But if I am going to make an assumption, I want to assume the best in people. And kind of like accepting that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. For me, accepting that not everyone has to be my cup of tea either. And that can be free of judgment. It's like I don't need to, in the same way that I don't need to get along with everyone, you know, everyone else doesn't have to get along with me, and that's okay. You know, we don't have to be friends with everyone. And people can do their own thing and they can live their life how they want. And for me, it's just about being an observer on the outside. You know, perhaps there's stuff that I can learn from, but I don't need to be critical of that and to, I guess to be judgmental about it. Another thing that has been very valuable for me is to seek advice and wisdom from the right people. And I think when you, and context matters, right? When you close off the amount of space that you allow care, I suppose, to people's opinions, then you can be more specific about where you target your energy. And not caring about what people think of you doesn't mean you know, go around just hurting people and there's no accountability and there's no consequences, obviously. You know, that's going to be there. It's very much about releasing the attachment and then going, hey, when I am seeking advice, who am I going to? So for me, my life now is radically different to anything that my parents would have imagined. Like, they're immigrants, they're boat people. For them, safety and security is paramount. So living this nomadic life that comes with very little security, very little stability, it's just not something that they will understand. And that's okay, right? Like, my parents absolutely have wisdom in different spheres, but I'm not going to ask advice about being a digital nomad. Might ask for advice about other things. In the same way, you don't go to a painter and ask for advice about finance, I suppose. I mean, it's just context. So I think when you surround yourself and surround yourself with the right people who you know, hey, I can go to this friend for this advice and this friend for another, that energy is a lot more protected. And so you're not just expending it caring about people who either don't matter or who you haven't given the space and the right to speak into your life. Finally, for me, an ongoing practice is loving and accepting myself, because it is ultimately me who matters. And so if this is something that resonates with you, applying a practice of love and acceptance for yourself. So rather than focusing outwardly for an external validation, you know, remind yourself, like something I continually remind myself of is that this need for acceptance and belonging, while it's very natural and we all want it, I don't need that validation from the outside. I'm the person living with my decisions. I'm the one who's going to be here from start to finish in this life. I'm the one who reaps the benefits, who deals with the consequences, who is the one living this life. It's me. So I try to give myself a lot of grace and a lot of space to make mistakes and to fail, and to not be judgmental and critical of myself either. Something that I have been practicing a lot more and has been very, I guess, effective and something very beneficial to me is just spending time with myself to get to know me more. And I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but it was something I avoided a lot when I was younger. I just wasn't as comfortable being alone. Maybe it's an extroverted thing, I don't know. But I think when I'm able to spend that time with myself and see the different parts of me come out. And they don't all have to be, these like light, great parts. There's definitely some shadow sides to who I am. When I'm able to spend that time with myself and get to know myself fully, I can have much more love, empathy, acceptance, and appreciation for myself. And a question I think that's important is simply, do you like who you are? When I reflect back on my actions, I think back and go, okay, hey, could I have done this better? Was there a way that I could have shown up better? Is there a way that I could have been kinder in this situation? It's not about what anyone else thinks of it. It's just me reflecting according to my own values and my ethos. And I think it can be difficult to identify good within ourselves. And so if this is something that you struggle with, which I had before a lot more, something that's been helpful for me is journaling and finding one good thing. So even if you pull yourself apart, I'm sure that you can find one good thing, and it can be the smallest thing. It can be, I like this freckle on my arm. I don't know. Find one good thing about yourself and start there, and start from there adding on to that list. So a couple of journal prompts that have been helpful for me is writing down things that I'm grateful for within myself. Perhaps traits or qualities that I'm really grateful for or that I love and admire about myself. And I think being reminded of those things just puts you in a position, again, where you don't need that validation externally. You're able to give it to yourself. That affirmation can come from you. I think speaking positive affirmations is something that's also really helpful. My therapist from maybe like 5 years ago or something suggested this, and I thought it was a bit weird and wacky, but looking into the mirror and picking 3 affirmations to say to myself. And that could be, you are worthy, you are kind, whatever it is that you feel is important for you to hear. And it is uncomfortable to do if that's not something that you're useful, but has a profound impact on shifting the lens in which you see yourself. So yeah, I think while it's a very natural and human thing to care about what others think of us, ultimately focusing on this doesn't serve us. In fact, it often drains us and directs attention to something we don't have control over. But the wonderful thing is when we're able to let go and unattach ourselves from the opinions of others, we live a much more balanced and live in a healthier mindset that's far more conducive to ourselves and in how we get to show up for others. So let me know what you think, or if there's anything else that you apply or try to be able to release and let go of this care about other people's opinions. Thanks for tuning in to Self. My name is Amanda Tran. You can follow me on Instagram at self_podcast and at Amanda Letran. That's Amanda Letran. I will see you next Thursday, probably from Lighthouse Studios again. Thanks again for joining me. See you. Bye.